Welcome to the Quantum Biology Collective podcast, where we break down the practical strategies of this emerging science, starting with healthy light habits and going wherever the quantum superhighway takes us. This is your host, executive and life coach Meredith Oak, with a quick reminder that podcasts are conversations, not consultations, and definitely not medical advice. We're here for informational purposes only. To follow up with our amazing guests, please do check out the show notes. And to stay in the loop with the QBC podcast, join our email list, also linked in the show notes. There are so many rabbit holes to go down when it comes to talking about light and the health benefits of light and the health harms of having bad light. We have episodes on infrared light, on UV light, on sunlight, on circadian rhythms in general, on fatigue, on digestion, on why light matters so very much from a quantum biologic perspective, so many things. So I think it's really important once in a while just to go back to the basics and remember that there are a lot of people out there, maybe even you, who are at a place where they're like, does this really matter? And to go back to the basics, I brought on today a wonderful guest called Andy Mant, who had a very similar journey to a lot of us, where he started hearing about this light stuff and then he started testing it out. And then he was like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe how important this is. And so he started a company with his wife, Katie, making blue blocking glasses. And they've now expanded to all kinds of wellness technologies, but it really started with light, and it's still very much focused on light. So Andy and I talk from the perspective of how important the education piece is for people who have no idea what we're talking about. So if you have someone in your life who's still like a blue blocking skeptic, this would be a great episode to share with that person. If that's you listening, stick around. This stuff is really important. Andy also gets into his entrepreneurial journey. So whether you are an entrepreneur or not, or if you work for yourself, his insights into what it takes to grow a business were also really interesting. And we get into that near the end. But we do spend most of the time focusing on how to just orient our brains around the fact that we have painted ourselves into an unbelievably disastrous corner with our current light environment. And we need to really think that through and make sure that we're doing whatever we can to upgrade our access to healthy light and mitigate our exposure to harmful light. So enjoy this episode. Thanks for watching. Oh, and Andy's company is bondcharge.com, and he has a special discount for all of you if you put QBC in the code at checkout. So enjoy this episode, and I'll see you later. Bye. All right, Andy Mant, so good to have you here, founder of bondcharge.com. Welcome to the Quantum Biology Collective podcast. This is going to be fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm super excited to have a conversation with you, Meredith.
So a lot of the guests on this podcast and a lot of the people in our listening audience have come to this place of getting into so deep on light and health and biohacking and understanding really out of the mainstream ways of thinking about wellness. So what was your journey like? How did you end up as someone who decided to start a company making blue blockers like back in 2017, I think it was, right?
It was, yeah, 2017. That seems like a long time ago.
It does.
The world was a
and
lot
like no one
simpler.
even knew what those were then.
I know. Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, it was a little bit before 2017 that I proposed to my now wife, and we wanted to kind of get in shape for our wedding. And we started working out, eating well, the usual stuff, nothing out of the ordinary. We got into shape, personal training, all that good stuff. Had our wedding and then got back to Australia, and we just then had this appetite to sort of look more deeply into our health, looking at different angles. And I stumbled across a doctor online, Dr. Jack Cruz, who I'm sure a lot of your audience will know, sort of like one of the pioneers in this sort of biohacking sphere. And he was talking about light and how it impacts sleep and health. And I remember he was sort of weighing in forums that I was speaking in about nutrition, diet, and exercise. And everyone used to just like jump on him, going like, "Who's this idiot?" and like, "What's he on about?" Blah blah blah. Um, but but to me, I like it when people start talking differently. It piques my interest. So I was like, right, I'm going to follow this guy for a bit and see what he's all about. And he kept posting studies, and I was reading them. And he was talking about something called blue light blocking glasses, and I was like, "What's all this? Like, this is supposedly good for your sleep. You know, you pop them on before bed, and it blocks blue light, helps with melatonin production, and allows you to get deeper, more restorative sleep." So what I did was I bought myself a pair of blue light blocking glasses from Amazon. They were the ones with the like pale orange sort of lenses, and I popped them on. I'd always struggled with my sleep, and the first night of putting them on, I had the best night's sleep I ever had. I was still waking up quite a bit wearing these glasses, but you know, it was the best I had ever had. So I was like, "There's something in this here." So the more I started to read about blue light, I found that it wasn't just sort of blue light in general, it was all of the blue wavelengths and quite a bit of the green wavelengths of light as well that was impacting melatonin production and disrupting sleep. So I just so happened to have a friend that worked in an optics lab, so they could test the glasses I had to see what light they were blocking. So I took them down there, ran them through the machine. It's like an instant thing, you know, that you can buy them online now, these little spectrometers. They have this sort of big bit of kit. So ran it through, and it wasn't even blocking all the blue light. It was blocking maybe like 70% of it. And when I was reading these studies and articles, it was saying you have to block 100% in a specific range, which I can talk about later in more detail. But that range was 400 to 550 nanometers, all of blue light, half of green light. So I said to him, my friend, I said, I sort of had an idea. I was like, I can't find this type of lens anywhere. If I ask you to create a lens that blocked 400 to 550 nanometers, could you do it? And they're like, yeah, easy, done. Just give us a couple of months and we'll do it. So anyway, had a prototype given to me, pop these glasses on. It's more of a darker amber red lens. And honestly, like the sleep leveled up again. And I was like, this is crazy, man. This is ridiculous. So I had 20 odd pairs made up, and I started sending them out to people that were wearing blue light glasses already, and just said, "Look, try this. I think I'm on something. Here's the studies. Let me know how they compare to what you've got. Give me some honest feedback." And every single one of these like biohacking influencery type people that are really into this stuff all came back to me and just said, "You've got something here. You've got to launch a company." And that's how it was born. And we just started with blue light glasses, and then we decided to look at other products to help with light, like red light therapy, you know, restorative frequencies of light. We looked at circadian friendly lighting to remove the nasty blue spike, which helps regulate circadian rhythms. We then looked at other areas of the EMF spectrum as well. So we looked at you know, like blocking Wi-Fi and Bluetooth with anti-radiation devices. We looked at sleep masks to block light. We looked at how to use far infrared light for heating purposes with sauna blankets. And yeah, it just sort of snowballed from there, really.
That's so cool. And it's so funny because I remember in 2017 I started to read about this same thing. I was listening to podcasts with Dr. Jack Cruz, and I listened to them for a long time before before I actually went out and bought glasses.
Yeah.
And in fact, it was because I did an online consult with him, and we were on Zoom. Or no, we were on what did we use before Zoom? Anyway, the other thing, we were having a digital meeting, and it was nighttime where I was living in Europe at the time, so it was like dark. And I pop on, it's middle of the day for him. He was in the US, and he's like, and I had like my pen, I was ready to like take notes, and he's like, "What time is it for you?"
And I was like, hi, nice to meet you. And he was like, where are your blue blocking glasses? And I was like, you're on a computer. God damn it. And I was like, uh, were you serious about those? That seems like kind of weird thing to do. And he was like,
Oh,
oh my God, what are you even here for? Right? And anyway, he changed my life by yelling at me. It was amazing.
yeah.
But yeah, it was a good memory for me because I had been reading, I had been listening, I'd been studying, and I still couldn't quite wrap my mind around really, like, you want me to put on orange lensed glasses. And so you had this insight and you went out and actually had them made because they were very hard to find. Like, you had to really dig around the internet to find anything decent
Yeah, absolutely.
at
You're
that
right.
time.
It was crazy. Yeah, there was nothing there. There was maybe like a couple of little tiny companies that would do it, and it would take, weeks and weeks to be able to have them made and stuff. But we sort them out, I guess, back in those days. But yeah, it was trying to bring it to the masses, and one of the big things that really helped me on my health journey was education. I wouldn't have been able to have understood the artificial sort of light impacts on biological processes if it wasn't for people in Facebook groups back in the day and on Twitter back in the day talking about this stuff. And that's what I wanted to infuse into sort of our company as well, which was education first. We wanted to not just have a product here, buy it. We wanted to write blogs. We wanted to have myself talk at summits, podcasts, all those types of places, and really educate people. So that's sort of was the forefront of what we wanted to do.
Yeah, and that education piece is really, where it needs to start and where it needs to
Yeah,
change because it's um it's starting to, I think, trickle in a little bit more to the mainstream, and we'll talk about that more later. But for someone who's never heard of it before, like, it really does sound kind of crazy, right? Like, you're telling me my light bulbs and the light from my screen is affecting my biology. What? Right?
yeah.
Because we have no context for that. So how do you approach it when you start educating people? Like, say you were talking to somebody who was not in the biohacking space, but they're interested in health to the point where they probably, buy organic food or something like that. So it's not like they don't care. They care, but they have no idea about any of this stuff. Like, what have you found to be the best way in with people?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just simplifying things, right? It's saying to people like, how do you feel when the sun's out during the day and you're outside? And people will say, I feel happy, I feel alert, and I feel great. And I would be like, okay, well, the blue light that's outside during the day is giving you a dopamine serotonin hit, raising your cortisol, and that's keeping you awake. And they're like, oh, okay, fair enough. And then I'm like, well, how do you feel when the sun sets and 2 or 3 hours pass and it's dark? And they're like, oh, I feel tired. It's like, okay, well, there you go. That's the basic sort of functionality of how body clocks work. So everyone has a body clock, a master clock in their super charismatic nucleus, so in the brain, right? For argument's sake. Now that clock is managed by light. So think back ancestrally. So our ancestors, hundreds of thousands of years ago, would have got up with the rising sun. That would have triggered dopamine, serotonin, cortisol release, which got them up and ready for the day. As the day went by, they could hunt, they could gather, they could do whatever they needed to do. When the sun set, there was no artificial light present. There was only natural light in the form of campfires, which is red, and orange light, which doesn't impact your central clock system. Then I say to them, how do you sleep now? And a lot of people will say not very well. And I then go on to explain, well, the issue you've got from a modern day perspective versus an ancestral perspective is we've got the same clock system in our bodies. However, we've created artificial suns in our environment. So we're now living under artificial suns inside during the evening, during the day. Now, the frequencies of light in those artificial suns impacts us hormonally very different to natural light. And the basic sort of explanation that people seem to understand is that blue light during the day causes you to feel awake and alert. Blue light is present in artificial suns, so your LED light, your smartphone, your TV, your fridge light, appliances, the list goes on. That sends the same message to your clock system at night that the sun does during the day, which is to keep you alert, keep you awake, increase cortisol. So that's why they're not sleeping. Then I say to them, okay, well, let's do an experiment. Like, let's use blue light blocking glasses after dark. Let's utilize techniques such as let's turn the telly off for, like, say, an hour before bed, do some meditation, do some yoga, something like that that doesn't involve screens or light. And people then report back how well they're sleeping. So I guess it's kind of simplifying it to the point where, if you're exposing yourself to similar frequencies of light that you're exposed to during the day after dark, it's going to have the same hormonal effect on you during the day that you shouldn't be having after sunset, which is to jack up cortisol and impair melatonin production, and therefore keep you wired when you want to be winding down and relaxing.
Right. That's a great way to get into it, is to ask people about their personal experience when they're in different types of light. Because it's true, like, you think about how you feel walking on the beach, or even just going outside. Before I got on with you, I just was like outside in the hammock. It's kind of like, evening time here. And I can feel my physiology relaxing and having a totally different response than when I'm in front of an artificial source of light.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's break it down a little bit. You mentioned, there was one thing I wanted to follow up with that you mentioned. So we talk about, like, opening the fridge, the light comes on, like all of these little sources of light that we don't even think about until we go down this rabbit hole. And then we're like, oh my gosh, there's this. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, our homes just seem to be filled with things that are constantly lit. What is the time needed to impact a circadian rhythm? Like, if you flip on the overhead lights in the bathroom, like, say, to full brightness, and you go in and brush your teeth and turn them off, have you impacted it? If you open the fridge, which you shouldn't be doing at night anyway, because you don't want to be eating
Yeah.
when it's dark out. But say you open the fridge to get water or something, like, how long do you have before you've messed things up?
Yeah, so immediately you would have messed things up if you don't have blue light blocking glasses on. And also it can impact the skin, but we can talk about that a bit later as well in terms of circadian rhythms. But what it seems to do, and Dr. Alexander Wunsch has done a few studies on this, it takes about half an hour for the melatonin production to resume back to where it should have been after exposure to artificial light through the eyes after sunset. The other issue you'll have is potential phase shifting. So if you start interrupting your circadian rhythm and melatonin production process, you can start having later bedtimes, which isn't as optimal. You might start waking up earlier or later. It's called phase shifting. So if you continually do it over a long period of time, you start to push out your bedtime. You start to wake up earlier, or not with the rising sun, or later. And that can be detrimental as well to biological processes. So, it's only half an hour to resume that melatonin production. So you'll probably get to bed and sleep, but will that sleep pattern be optimal? Probably not in the long term.
Okay. So if we live in an environment where we don't have total control over the light, perhaps we're married to someone who is not bought into the circadian way of life yet.
Yeah.
Or we have kids or whatever, or we're in an environment where we can't control the light. What you're saying is we want to have our blue blockers on, like, from the time the sun goes down?
Yeah, absolutely. You want to be watching the sun go down as well. There's a lot of people don't know that the most sort of intense spike of blue light is just before the sun starts setting. And it seems to be watching the sunset. It's that trigger rather than the red light in the setting sun and the orange light that actually causes a decrescendo effect, which then starts to reduce the cortisol level and then start preparing the body for melatonin release. So optimally, you want to be watching that sunset as well. It's almost like, think how amazing it is watching the sunset and how relaxed you feel even before it's gone down. Like, it's not so much the red and orange, it's more this massive spike in blue, which then sends that signal to that clock system that I was talking about earlier, which then starts stimulating processes hormonally that lead to better and more optimal melatonin production later on in that evening. I guess, you know, I won't say it as harshly as Dr. Cruz would, but you've got to sort out that light environment. There's no like quick fix here. There's no like, oh, my husband or my wife, they want to keep the lights on. It's like, no, you've got to take control and educate them that no, this is bad, because otherwise you're just going to have, the negative effects. It's like dating someone that doesn't understand nutrition, but they're cooking for you every night. So you're eating hot dogs and burgers and pizza every night, going, oh, but that's all they know. You've got to educate them, right? But during that education process, obviously, it's not spooking them saying, right, got to do this, got to do that, or you're going to die. It's like, right, little bits at a time and try and get them into it slowly. Maybe start with, even though this is far from optimal, maybe start by dimming the lights in the evening. Maybe that helps them. I mean, dimming a light bulb will increase flickering in the EMF, which is not good either, but it's reducing the blue light. Maybe it's starting them off wearing like the yellow lens glasses rather than the red ones, because it doesn't impair the vision as much during the evening. You want to be wearing the optimal stuff yourself as well, but trying to start them baby steps. I remember my wife, she took a while to get used to it when I was talking to her about this stuff, and she started off with, she couldn't wear the product that we created. She had to wear the yellow, the lighter orange ones, until she got to a point where she felt more comfortable and happy to wear them. So it took her several months as well. And you've got to also look at, like what you said, like kind of looking at circadian rhythms as not just something that's governed by light. Food impacts it as well. You need to be stopping eating 3-4 hours before bed, ideally when the sun is still up. You don't want to be eating after dark. That's just not, from a gastrointestinal standpoint, the most optimal time to do it. Melatonin starts its production in the gut, through serotonin production, and when you start eating, you start impacting that process, when it needs to synthesize with tryptophan and start making melatonin. So you've got to be careful with those things as well. But studies have also shown that artificial blue light after dark can actually impact us just at a skin level as well. So you've got to make sure you're covered up, as much as you can. Like, I'm sat here with long sleeves on today, because I'm looking at a screen, and I don't want so much shining on me. I'm quite a distance away from that screen. Maybe if you have thyroid problems, you should be covering your neck as well if you're under artificial light. So a scarf is always good to put on there. After I've finished this conversation with you, the sun's coming up as we speak. You can probably see an orange glow in the background, because I have circadian friendly lighting on in the background. That's why I'm not wearing blue light glasses speaking to you, because I have a biohacked phone where it's red right now that I'm looking at. I have circadian friendly lighting in the background, and I will be going outside as soon as this conversation has ended to ground barefoot, to reduce inflammation, get the natural light into my eyes. I'd be out now if we weren't having this conversation, but I would be out there getting the natural light. And I'll also be doing red light therapy after I've got my natural light as well, because the other problem with artificial light is it's packed full of blue and there's hardly any red light in it. Blue light's, it's great during the day, right? It causes us to feel awake and alert, but it causes cellular damage, it accelerates aging, it can cause cells to turn over quicker. Nature has this amazing way of counteracting this. The sun has plenty of red light in it, and studies have shown red light is ultra restorative. So blue light from the sun has red light, works perfectly in unison. Blue light from your smartphone, LED light sources, computer, lots of blue light, hardly any red light. So I'll be having red light therapy session for 20 minutes after this, where I'll stand in front of a panel, and that red light will then help any damage that's been caused by any artificial sort of ambient, ubiquitous blue light that's been in the environment during this conversation. So I guess, I've sort of gone off on a little bit of a tangent there, but yeah, you just got to start slow with your partner, and start putting in little hacks like I've just mentioned there to try and, I guess, mitigate the artificial blue light exposure after dark from an ocular and a skin level.
Right. Okay. Yeah. There is a lot in there. So I totally agree. I think it's time to really be a little bit more forceful about our light choices. Like, the evidence is so clear. There's an amazing book coming out by Dr. Martin Moore-Eade, who is a circadian researcher at Harvard in the 80s and 90s. And he basically just says, like, blue light at night is causing cancer, diabetes, and obesity, and it needs to stop. And so I'm hoping that this book, becomes a bestseller. Keep mentioning it. The Light Doctor, everyone needs to buy it to
Yes.
realize, right? Like, the research is clear. This is no longer like, oh, what are the biohackers doing? Like, it's like our light, not understanding the importance of our light environment to our eyes, to our skin, to our everything. We're really, really causing harm.
It
And
is, yeah.
so,
You're right. It's and just to sort of interject there as well, from what you were talking about the horrible diseases you just mentioned there. Since you and I have been getting into light, like I think it was 2 years ago, I was, and I've just recently, a few months ago, finished recording with Nick Pienolt, who's the EMF hazards guy, for a webinar for the summit that's just finished. And we were talking and having a conversation about blue light, and he mentioned to me a couple of years back, and he does on every conversation because it's important to reiterate it. The World Health Organization has now classified artificial blue light as a class 2 carcinogen. So there you go. The World Health Organization is saying that it's a probable link to cancer. So there you go. That's straight from the World Health Organization's mouths.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. And to what I was saying earlier, it can feel like, oh, really? Like, light, it can't be that big of a deal, and
Yeah.
I know a man who recovered from cancer. His wife recovered from cancer.
Amazing.
He is like, he eats organic, he runs outside every day, he does every single thing that his doctors told him. They did all kinds of research to make sure that they could stay healthy. But he looks at his phone before bed because he's like, he doesn't believe me. Like,
Yeah.
Look, if you don't care about your health, you don't care about your health. But if you care about your health, you have to care about light. Like, it's non-negotiable at this point.
Yeah, exactly. And it's sad because the problem is with these things, so like non-native EMFs, blue light, bad diet, lack of exercise, all those things, all the different pillars of health, spirituality. You don't realize there's a problem until there's a problem, and that's the issue. A lot of people do certain things. So, like for instance, with light, they'll probably feel they're sleeping fine, but what they won't know is that until you've tried managing your light environment, you don't know what good sleep is. You think that you're sleeping well, but your REM sleep's not great. Your sleep cycles into deep sleep, your 90-minute cycles aren't working. Your autophagy and apoptosis isn't optimized. But because you've had bad sleep in your life, and now you feel you're sleeping well without light management, how do you know that's optimal, right? That might be optimal based under the conditions and environment you're living in right now. But from a physiological, biological perspective, you're probably way off. You're probably 20, 30% of how you could be performing. It's like saying, yeah, I go out jogging once a day for 30 minutes. That's the peak of athletic performance. I can't get any higher than that. And it's like, well, no, if you train an hour a day, if you train under different conditions, if you get a coach, if you run outside rather than a treadmill, if you eat better or whatever it is, you can become, an athlete. It's like trying to compare like a recreational jogger to a world champion Olympic marathon runner and saying no, I'm as optimal as that. It doesn't make sense. So that is the sad thing with this stuff, right? You pop a pill and you can get an immediate reaction to something, or drink a glass of wine and you immediately feel relaxed. With light and with health, these you know negative side effects that happen, they don't happen immediately. They happen over many years of doing the same thing. And we see it in society today. Someone that's eating crappy food didn't wake up obese the next day. It took them 10, 15 years of eating that way to then realize there's a problem. And what we need to understand for people listening to this is, why take the chance with light causing you these issues? Just popping on a pair of glasses for 2 hours before you go to bed, or getting sunlight in your eyes first thing in the morning before you see any other light, installing a few light bulbs in your house that don't emit blue light to put on after dark, and not scrolling your phone an hour before bed. Like, what compromises that? It's nothing. It's such a small thing to do, to have that peace of mind that you're then protecting your future self against any kind of potential harmful impact that this artificial light could be having on your circadian biology.
Yeah. And it's like, once you start to understand it, and it seems so clear, and it's so hard to watch people just keep showing up in front of those lights. And I'm very much like, I don't like to like get in people's business. I'm a very much like, you do you person. And however, I am starting to get to the point where I'm going to become a little bit more maybe a little bit bossy about this topic.
Get a bit more Jack Cruisey.
And so, yeah, just a touch.
Yeah, just a little sprinkle.
We don't want to go too far down that.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. No, you turn people off if you're too direct. So yeah, exactly. And it's I think you're right. It's difficult to tell people what to do. People don't like being told what to do. They don't. It's fact of the matter. And I'm one of those people. I hate it. I like to make my own decisions. And I think all you can do is empower people. You just got to give them the information and let them find out on their own. Some people might adopt it straight away, the first adopters. Others may take months and years, but that repetitive sort of explanations. And I remember a lot of people back in the day used to call me the Cruise Whisperer, right? Because they said that they used to follow him and have no idea what he was going on about because of the way he was explaining things. Whereas I listened to him and started to break it down a little bit more basically. And people would come to me saying, oh my God, I've been following Jack Cruise for years. I have no idea where to start, what to do. But following you just for a couple of weeks, I now understand a lot more about what to do. So I guess where I'm coming from with this is, it's like teaching. Everyone learns in a different way. Some people are auditory, some people like it written down, some people are visual. My wife used to tell me a story about her maths teacher, that she just couldn't get it at all. She was in the top set of maths. This guy was just like, this is how you do it. This is how you do it. He wouldn't change the way she was taught. She got moved class into a different set with a different teacher and became top of the class because she was taught in a different way. So it's just empowering and educating and talking about things differently. And eventually people have that eureka moment in their own time and will get it. And also what we find with education is people are on different parts of their journeys. You can get these ultra sort of stoic, staunch people that come in and go, you know what, whatever you tell me, I'm ready. I'll do it all straight away. Whereas you'll get others that are just like, you know what, this is like, whoa, this is too much. I'm like at this end of the spectrum and you want me here immediately. They just have to take little steps along the way and doing things that aren't, crazy and woo woo in their mind until they sort of go further along on their journey. So yeah, I guess it's the positioning really of the education, and it's just got to be, a sprinkling of Jack Kruse in there to scare the crap out of people, and a dusting of you and I to sort of softly explain what the situation is and just see who responds to who.
Yes. No, exactly. And I always like to say as well, right? Like every little change matters. Just
Yeah.
one small thing. So if we have, if you have a loved one in your life, or if you're still sort of, on the edges of this, um, just one small change, just buying a pair of blue blockers, just going outside a little bit more, uh, it it adds up and it makes a difference. It doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, right? It's, people want to buy blue light blocking glasses, like go for it. Just make sure you're finding a reputable brand that shows the test results and blocks 100% between 400 and 550 nanometers. But if people aren't even there yet, like start doing like what you mentioned there, some cool free hacks, right? So the first light you see in the morning, just make sure it's sunlight. It's easy for you guys now. You're in the summer, right? Now's a good time to start this. Like we're in the winter. I have to sit in red light in the morning until the sun comes up and then go outside. And that's it's ideal for like circadianly speaking, but I'm sat there all antsy going, where's this sun? I need my cortisol and dopamine here. So getting outside more, just in the mornings, watching that sunrise, then come in and go on your phone. That's not an issue. Um, During your lunch break, like eat your lunch outside. Sit in the shade, sit under a tree, be close to nature, have all that light shining into you, get your sunglasses off. Like, I'm not saying stare at the sun, but get in the shade, get your sunglasses off, allow natural light to pass through your eyes. Wearing sunglasses, too often is gonna again scramble the signals from the sun because you're filtering light during the day, which isn't a good idea. Then watch the sunset if you can do it. Regular sun breaks, being outside, and then other little things like balancing the light in your office environment. If people are working in an office on a laptop, add night shift mode, low blue light mode on your computer. Get some red light into it as well. Maybe a salt lamp if you've got one floating around. Put that next to your computer, or you can use red lights. Like lamps and things, like we sell those, but if you have a salt lamp you can use that to start with, even though that's like a pink light. You can go for the red of those lamps. um just regular breaks away from screens as well. Not sitting near a window is another great idea, right? Sitting next to a window can increase risks of cellular damage at the skin level because you're filtering UV light, like you're letting all the UVA in and UVB is being blocked. So a lot of people think, oh, I'm getting natural light, sit near a window. No, no, no. That's probably one of the worst things you can do. If the window's open,
Right.
sit by it. Amazing. If it's closed, you're getting more junk light into you, really detrimental. So you want to be avoiding that as well. And then just things like, I guess, another free tip would be, just getting more parasympathetic an hour before bed. So putting the phone down, turning the screens off, turning the light off, reading under red light that can be done, lamps and bulbs and things like that. If you don't have those, dim the light and read maybe, or do yoga, some meditation, maybe some binaural beats. That's great as well. That's using frequencies of sound rather than light to help stimulate sleep. So you can even dial it right back to that before they then move on to products. Because I know that a lot of people will look at the products that we sell, for instance, and go, oh gosh, $100 for a pair of glasses, that's a lot of money. But these things last forever, right? And if you were to go around a shopping mall and just say to people, right, give me $100 and I'll give you the best night's sleep of your night every night for the rest of your life, you'd be a millionaire by the end of the day. People would do it. But it's an investment, right? It's an investment in your health and your sleep. It's not like this one-time purchase where you'll use it a few times and then have to replace it. and it works out a lot cheaper than popping melatonin pills for the rest of your life as well. So and a lot safer as well. So it's seeing these things, these products as investments when you're ready to take that step. And you know, I just want to educate. I'm not fussed if people listening to this go and buy blue light blocking glasses and red light bulbs from someone else. It doesn't concern me. But what I do say is do your research. Don't just buy a cheap pair off Amazon. Make sure you got that 100% blockage between 400 and 550 nanometers. Ask for test results. If they can't produce them or they're not showing them on their website, you probably want to look at another supplier. Make sure the lighting that you're buying is actually emitting red light as well. I did a YouTube video many years ago where I bought several red light bulbs and tested them with a spectrometer on camera, and a lot of them still had blue light in them. They were just painted red and still emitted blue light. So just do your due diligence and just find science-backed companies, because not all lighting, not all blue light glasses are created equal. And I hope that those two sort of tips allow people to then do their market research and find the one that's best for them, really.
Yeah. Thanks, Andy. That's really helpful. And I think what I'm hearing is, it's the first step is that we become mindful of our environment. We are so focused when it comes to health on what we put in our body. What are we eating? What supplements are we taking? What are we doing with our body? What exercises are we doing? But when then you take that extra step to think about what signals is the environment that I'm in sending into my biology, and to just be mindful of that, and to present that idea to people. Of course it makes sense. Like, of course it matters. That you feel different if you're in a, in an airport and a flight is late and everyone's freaking out compared to being at a symphony, right? Like, we know it, of course, that the environment has an impact on us. But in that day-to-day way, we don't think about it as much. Those are really, really helpful tips. And this is a really good episode. I think I'm really enjoying this for people who are newer to this information, right? Because it can be a lot. It can be a big mouthful to swallow. But I love how you've laid it out. I really appreciate that. And I'd love to talk, you mentioned a few minutes ago, spirituality as being part of our health journey. And so you're in a place where you've incorporated your health journey with your business journey. You work with your wife. Tell us a little bit about that. I know from my own experience that being an entrepreneur is a wild ride.
Yeah.
So just give us kind of an overview and where you're at with things in terms of running your own business.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, like, 'cause it's quite a broad question, right? But I think it depends where you're at in your journey. Like, what you've got to realize is when you're trying to grow a business and grow a company, what got you to a certain point is not enough to get you to the next stage, right? You've got to look at things very differently. And I think that's what becomes difficult being an entrepreneur. So what gets you to a six-figure company, 7, 8, and so on is all very different. I think in the beginning, I've talked about each stage up to sort of 8 figures on how we grew the company, and that might be helpful. I guess the first stage was really getting it up to that sort of 6 figures, I guess, like that sort of $100,000 sort of dollar turnover,
right.
like.
Where you're like, oh my God, can I even do this? Is this even going to work? What's going to happen?
It's
right.
a hard stage, right? And I think you've got to break it down. You can't go, look, I'm going to be an 8-figure company. That goal is fine to say once and then let it go. You've got to break it down and go, right, I'm going to get to 100 grand in a 12-month period, and this is how I'm going to do it. And I guess the way you've got to do it is you've got to be extremely hands-on. You've got to be the ones doing the promotion. You've got to be collecting emails and SMS on your website. You've got to be giving a lot of your product away to people. You've got to be going after people that are talking and educating about the product and getting it out and asking them to start posting. And that will get you there fairly quickly. If you do that, and only those things, you can get by. The website can be okay. It doesn't need to be amazing, as long as people can get on and purchase your product. Then getting it to the next stage, like getting yourself to like $1 million company, requires a little bit more sort of, I guess, a few more tactics in doing that. You still got to do what you're doing at the first stage, otherwise that will drop off. So you've got to continue to do that stage. Then you need to start looking at more the paid partnerships. You've got to be looking at, you know, for us personally, YouTubers, Instagram, educators. I don't want to call them influencers, more people that are educating. You've got to look at like podcast advertising, but with people that are thought leaders. You know, when it's an education first brand, like you can't just go to, you know, some sort of, you know, young girls podcast that's talking, you know, about lifestyle and how they went out for dinner with their friends. It's just no substance to it. Got to be choosing people that are educating, and then the audience are typically tuning in to learn. So it just works really well. The thing that worked really well for Katie and I was that we did this as a side hustle for the first 3 years, because we're in year 7 now. So the first 3 years we still had our full-time jobs. So we were working on this on the side, and you know, during every break we could possibly get. And you know, when the bosses were out, it was like, right, we're working on this now. And that was good because it provided a safe and secure income. So the rapid sort of ascension that we had in our growth was brought about because we could invest every dollar we were making on marketing and partnerships, and that then took us from that 6 to 7 figures incredibly quickly, which worked really well. And then I was blogging more. I started going on a lot of podcasts. I think maybe about 130 odd now I've done around the world, where going on and just talking about the products, and that really helped as well to start cementing our positioning in the marketplace as education, which is very important. You've got to understand what you're doing and do it well. I think where a lot of people fail at the stage from going from 6 to 7 figures is they try and do too much. You've got to pick your lane and do it extremely well, and you've got to do it quickly. Okay, there's going to be so much competition around you that you need to block out your competition by advertising or using certain influencers to stop them getting in there. You've got to be on advertising and speaking consistently across a lot of boards and podcasts and things like that, so people hear your name or hear your company everywhere, and they're just like, you know, this is crazy, they're everywhere, like I've got to look into this, and it starts to pique interest. You've got to have that sort of 12 touch point before people start sort of purchasing. And then the 7 to 8 figures, now that's where it gets tricky, because you're starting to have a lot of staff working for you. You start to have to look at the brand more rather than just 6 and 7 figures. You can kind of just go buy, educate, buy, educate, buy, educate, buy. That won't take you on its own from 7 to 8 figures. You need to then start looking at how the brand is perceived in the marketplace. You need to start aligning yourselves with very key figures as ambassadors to align your values with theirs, so it kind of comes hand in hand. So you've got to look at PR more, publicity that doesn't necessarily provide quantifiable results in terms of, right, you know, we can sponsor a podcast episode, give a discount code, measure how many people use it, and go, that was successful, or nah, that wasn't, and we know where we stand. So, like, you know, partnering with like the likes of Mind Body Green or Poosh or Vogue or GQ, Men's Health, things like that, where it's more just educational articles that allow people to sort of understand more about it without pitching products, will then take you from that 7 to 8 figures. But it's a very scary one because you spend a lot of money doing it and you can't track it. And for someone like me that likes data, it's horrible. And it took a long while for my wife to convince me to do it. And I'm glad she did, because it elevated the brand's standing and got us to where we are now. And, you know, we'll then know that 8 to 9 figures will be something different as well. We just, you just have to kind of, I guess the way I'm saying it, it makes it sound easy, but we didn't just stumble across that bromide. We tested loads of different things, what's making us grow, and then you have that bromide. And I guess people listening to this now probably don't have to test so much because I just told them how to do it. But everything's very different, right? You got to look at what the brand is. Like that bromide might not work for a different brand, but at least people wouldn't understand, I guess, the mindset of going through each of those pillars and sort of understanding that every stage of the journey is very different, and it gets harder. The more you grow, the more harder it is. I've got 30 people working with me now at Bond Charge, and I'm busier than I've ever been. Whereas, when I was doing it all myself, when it was the sort of 6 and 7 figures, I had loads more time. But I've got 30 people now trying to get me from 8 to 9, and it's even more work. Like it's crazy. So don't think it's going to get easier. It just gets harder and harder. And I think that's why a lot of people need to understand at an entrepreneurial level, what you want. Do you want a 7-figure business making $1 million a year, and you've got all the freedom in the world to do what you want, and you don't have anyone working for you, and life's good? Or do you want to become a multi-millionaire making 10-20 million dollars a year for yourself as the end goal, but you're going to have a lot of stress in your life to get to there? And there's no right or wrong answer. It's what you want as an individual. And then I guess it's, if you want that end goal of earning the millions of dollars, you've got to have that sort of succession plan in place and start thinking about it at the 7-figure mark of like, well, I want the freedom and the money. How do I do that? And you've got to start empowering people to run the business for you, which will never be at the level that you will do on your own. It's impossible. Because if you find people that can deliver at the level you can, they'll be entrepreneurs as well. So you've got to have that realization that people around you will deliver probably max 80% of what you can, and you've got to be happy with that. So that's one thing to consider when growing your brand as well. The difficulty comes when you grow and you start empowering other people. What you've built in terms of brand perception needs to be maintained at the bare minimum, and that's incredibly difficult to do when someone else is doing it for you and it's not the founders anymore. So that was sort of our biggest challenge, and luckily I pulled in people that I've worked with for 10-15 years prior to this that knew nothing about the industry, but I knew their ethics, and I knew that what they would do for the brand would be they would fight for it because we're friends. And that worked really well for us as well. Rather than bringing in specialists that are just out for the paycheck, I brought in people that knew marketing, knew sales and things like that, but had never done it in this arena. But I knew them. So that was very good, having people close to me that I could trust as well.
Yes, that makes a really big difference in having that feeling of trust with the team and knowing that everyone's on the same page, especially with a business like this, which is to a certain extent mission driven, right?
Yeah.
Like if you put your focus on education and quality and making sure that people understand why they might want to buy these products. And just to get people, like you were saying earlier, I don't care where you buy it, but if you understand the point of all of this, that's making a huge dent in the universe.
Exactly that. The more people that know, the bigger the industry becomes, and the bigger the industry becomes, everyone benefits. The consumer and all the businesses that are putting these amazing products into the world. And that's the thing that a lot of people get hell bent on. It's like, the amount of times we have, or we see messages saying, how do your glasses compare to X brand? And we answer it every single time of like, it comes down to personal choice. Like X brand is an exceptional brand, as is Bond Charge. There's no difference. If we know the brand, there is no difference. We'll say there is no difference. You choose. It's totally fine. It's up to you. And then you see the other end of the spectrum when people are asking it to our competitors and they forward us the response, and we're getting, sort of slated in them saying, no, ours is best, don't go with them for X, Y, and Z. And it's just like, come on, guys, like we need to empower everyone. These people they want to purchase. You don't need to badmouth other companies. You just need to just lift everyone up. We're all in this together. We're all trying to help people. And people that are using that stance to their customers, they're not out to help people, in my opinion. They're out to just get your sale and, at any sort of possible angle. And I just don't think in terms of, that will work for them to a 7-figure business. It will. But if you want to go further, it's that what I was talking about earlier, that public perception, and slagging off other brands isn't going to be very beneficial, and it won't take you to that next level. You'll spin your wheels and stay in that one position. And also, it's ensuring your mission statements and your values are hashed out as well. Like values of company X, that when a customer says, how do they compare to Bon Charge, and you're getting back saying, "Oh, don't buy those, buy ours." It's where's the ethics and the value proposition there? Like, how does that align to the consumer? People want, and need the education, but they need the candidness, the openness. Someone not telling them what to do. No one wants to be told. Like, just say, yeah, look. I'll mention here, like, ourselves, Raw Optics are a great brand. I know Matt Maruka very well. His product is on a par with ours. If you want and prefer his styles to Bon Charge, you go ahead. You're going to get an excellent product there. And they're one brand that will do the same back to us. If someone comes to them and speaks about Bon Charge, they'll say, yeah, just choose whatever. We're both on the same mission to empower, educate, and just make the world a healthier place. So just need more of that in the world, really, regardless of whoever's business is, whatever the person listening to this business is, whether it's selling candles or selling, insurance. Like, it just lift everyone up, and the world will be a better place. It really will.
Yes. No, it's so true. Or health coaching is probably something there, because I noticed a lot of people, like, they come to our partner organization, and they take the certification and to understand at a deep level all of this science. And then they're like, oh, but someone else is already doing it. And it's like, yeah, but they're not you. And the person who is going to want to work with you is not going to want to work with someone else. They're going to want to work with you. And, a doctor doesn't go like, oh, there's all a bunch of other people getting MDs. I don't need one. Like, no, you're going to be your doctor. And I love that you're bringing that sensibility to the business world, and just like being honest with people and telling them the truth. And there's, I just want to say there's so much room for growth. I was out this afternoon at an outdoor mall. I don't go to malls that often, but my son's going to camp. We needed to get some stuff. And there was just this giant window. It said, coming soon, Sunglass Hut, right? And it was just like an entire window of just a poster of sunglasses, as every style you can imagine, right? And I just had this moment where I thought, like, oh my goodness, there's so much room to grow for the kind of products that we believe in. Right? Like, you can't even buy them in a store right now. You have to go online.
I know.
So there's so much that, we're at such the beginning stages. There's so much possibility and potential for all of this. So just quickly to wrap up, like, when you talked about your journey, I did a podcast recently with a great guy called Dr. Calvining, and we were talking about the nonlinear nature of healing. And sometimes you get better, and then because certain systems have come online, things that were very deep down pop up, and you get sick again, and like, you just never know where things are going to go. And going through that journey that you just described, which, by the way, congratulations. It takes a lot of grit and determination and creativity to keep going with that. What are some of the lessons that you've learned? What are some of the personal growth takeaways that you have experienced through all of this?
Wow, that's a good question. I think the main one, like, lessons not so much lessons learned, but I guess a philosophy. Don't wait to get your product to market. Like, don't refine, and then release your product. Release your product and then refine it. It's a much better way to do it. Otherwise, you're going to be smashed by your competition. The first sort of the first products we got sort of into our business, blue light glasses aside, because they were optimized, that first product, but some of the other ones we changed, we tweaked along the way and made better, and I think that works. I think another sort of lesson learned is when looking to market your product, pick a very small niche to start with rather than just going everywhere. Very, very small. Like for instance, we're like health, wellness, sort of holistic beauty company, whereas we started with our niche at biohacking. So really small, extreme group of people that were really interested in their health, and that worked really well for us. But I think the biggest one for me, actually, where I feel I made a mistake, was not hiring people soon enough. I feel it never, when I remember first like hiring, I was so nervous, like, oh my God, I'm going to be paying salaries and all this and that and the other. And I feel that stunted our growth maybe in year 4, not hiring quick enough. And we were constantly playing catch up. Like up until year 5, I was still picking and packing orders with people because we just didn't have enough staff to do it. And we're just starting year 7 now. So it was not long ago. And yeah, I think you've just got to do it. You've got to trust that your forecasting is correct. And when you start hiring people, you start to see growth happen a lot quicker as well. You start to be able to have someone looking after affiliates, someone looking after emails, someone looking after wholesale orders or whatever it may be, someone dealing with logistics. And you start to see that, oh, wow, like I can let go of the control over the business where I'm picking orders, then ordering stock, then answering a bit of customer service or, looking for affiliates and allowing people to do it for you. And the last sort of year, I've been really front loading. Like we've in a year, we've gone from 5 to 30 people. And the growth has hockey sticked as a result, and it's continuing to. So I think you've got to bite the bullet, and you've just got to do it. You've got to hire staff and hire them quickly for roles that you think you're going to need in 6 months, because if you start trying to hire them when the business is growing rapidly, it's so stressful. It really is, and it will break you.
Yeah, you're just playing catch up all the time and you're never out in front of the puck. Yeah. Well, this is fabulous advice. And I truly believe, I saw a quote the other day, I forget it exactly, but it was something like, entrepreneurs are really the people who are changing the world.
Yeah.
And I think it's really true. For a lot of reasons, but if for people who have a vision and a mission and have dedicated their lives to turning it into something that, pays people salaries, it brings people health, makes the world a different place than it was. So thanks for the work you do, Andy.
And you too. And I'm glad that I can have these conversations with like-minded people. And, I always round off by saying, if this conversation helps one person, our job's done, and it will help a lot more than that. So, I'm really grateful that I've had this opportunity to be on your platform and speak to your amazing community. And, I hope we've empowered them today, and I hope their lives continue to optimize through, listening to your podcast and doing their research. And I think the world's going to be a better place.
Yes. So this is a great conversation to share with the entrepreneur in your life who's up late working on screens.
Yes, definitely.
They'll get some circadian advice and some business advice.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much, Andy.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Woohoo! You made it to the end of another episode. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploratory adventure into new realms. Your energy and support are building a different world, and I am so grateful to be on this journey with you. Take care, and thanks.